Welcome to another edition of Chess Chat, a program brought to you live from the Workers' Credit Union studio at Fitchburg Access Television. I am your host, George Meridanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club, the second oldest chess club in Massachusetts, meets every Wednesday evening from 6:30 to 10:30 in rooms 142 and 143 of the McKay Complex at the university. And with me, once again, for this episode of Chess Chat, is our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg, a recipient of FATV's prestigious Boulder Award. And he's assisted in the control room and also on camera by fellow resident and longtime Wachusett Chess Club member Brian Bigelow. And sitting across from me is my colleague, associate, longtime chess tournament player, our Wachusett Chess Club statistician, a chess author, a chess photographer, an all-around good guy, Dave Kuchar of Westminster. Hello, Dave.
Hi, George. How are you?
Always good to see you, Dave. I'm good. I hope you're good, too.
Yep.
Well, Dave, this episode of Chess Chat is a tribute to a New England chess legend, John Curdo. John Curdo passed away at the age of 90 on September 30th of this year in Worcester, at a hospice in Worcester. His death came as a result of a head injury he sustained by falling at home last month. So we really mourn the passing of a true New England legend, and I consider John Curdo the greatest New England chess player in the history of New England chess. Now, I've been challenged by this by people who say, well, wasn't Harry Nelson Pillsbury the greatest chess player, from New England or from Massachusetts? I said, yes, Harry Nelson was truly a great chess player. He made his mark actually internationally when he won that great tournament in Hastings, England, 1895. He played internationally, but he also won the U.S. Championship. But John Curdo was special. He made his mark in New England because he played here. He played in every single New England state. He holds records that I predict will never be broken. Now, one of the records that he holds that I predict no one will ever break is the number of Massachusetts State Championship wins. He has the record of 17. The closest one to him right now is Grandmaster Alexander Ivanov. He's at 14. I'm predicting.
Is he really?
14.
I didn't think
Alexander
he was that
Ivanov
close.
has 14 state championship wins. There is we have a photo of John Curdo. Again, he died at age 90. We did a program last year when he turned 90 years old. But going back to the records that Curdo holds, he's won it 17 times. And his first Massachusetts State Championship victory was at the age of 16 in 1948. And the last one was in 1985 when he was 53 years old. But he dominated chess in New England for 40 years. He wrote a book titled, in fact, we have it. Maybe we could show, we get a camera shot. 40 years at the top. This is John Curdo, John Curdo's chess career. And in this book, he talks about how he got involved in chess, and he actually gives a whole biography of how he got very much involved in chess and puts in games. In fact, he puts one of my games that he soundly crushed me up in Rutland, Vermont, back years ago. But John Curdo also wrote other chess material. You actually have a number of his booklets called Chess Caviar.
So it's all a collection of 100 miniature games. So
short games.
All less than 25 moves.
Okay, and he produced 3 of them. Chess Caviar, more Chess Caviar, and still more Chess Caviar. Okay, and again, those are really collector's items. Anybody who has those among our chess viewers, they should play over the games because Curdo was a classical player. He wasn't a hyper-modern player. He didn't play any bizarre, unusual openings.
Well, he played the Dutch, right?
Well, you consider that bizarre? Okay, well, he was considered actually an expert on the Dutch defense.
I would think so, yeah, because he pretty consistently played it. So
yeah, and another opening that he was considered an expert, a specialist in, was actually the Belgrade Gambit in the Four Knights game. Okay. I mean, people who play chess long enough may know that gambit. I've never played it.
I don't either.
No, okay, anyways. But getting back to John Curdo, another record which people have challenged me on when I've told them, John Curdo holds the record for the most number of tournament wins of anybody in this country and possibly in the world. We had one of our chess club members, Mike Bergeron, who visited him last year, in August of last year, 2021. And Mike Bergeron asked John, I said, John, how many tournaments have you won in your career? And John, who keeps very meticulous records, I mean, he has records of every single tournament he's played in, all his games. He told Mike, 947.
Wow.
And this was last year. Of course, he stopped playing because of the pandemic.
Yep.
He was playing at the Greater Worcester Chess Club on Thursday nights at the Hibernian Center in downtown Worcester. But, of course, that stopped in February 2020. Right. But when Mike Bergeron visited him at his condo in Auburn, he said, Mike, I've won 947 tournaments. Now, if anybody can produce documentation that somebody has won more tournaments than that, I'd like to see it. Because John has the documentation that he's won 947 tournaments. Again, he's won tournaments. He's played in every single state, won tournaments in all the New England states, holds the record for the most number of Masters State Championship wins, holds the record for the most number of tournament wins.
How about New England Open wins? He probably has the record for that too,
okay.
Right?
Now, that actually, I don't have the number of wins, but he started winning those back actually in the 1950s, that he won New England Open wins. By the way, I'm going to try to find the documentation as far as how many New England Open wins. He's won several, quite a few. But again, he was a legend. He was a legend. And we're not going to see the likes of a John Curdo ever again. He was one of a kind. Yeah. So I just want to let our viewers know that we lost actually, and he started playing in Fitchburg back in the early 1960s in a very popular tournament called the Central New England Open. Right. And he started winning them year after year in the 1960s, into the 1970s. When we relocated the tournament to the Holiday Inn in Leominster, he continued to win them there. And then even into the 1980s, when we came back to Fitchburg, and we held them at various places, like the Elks, the Fitchburg Elks, the Knights of Columbus. We let them on the Ambets on John Fitch Highway. So John Curdo was a very good supporter of chess in Fitchburg and Leominster back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and he's no stranger to chess veterans in Fitchburg and Leominster. Yeah. So, and again, you've played in tournaments with John Curdo, have you not?
I've played him twice.
You actually played him twice?
I've played him twice. I've lost twice. There's no shame in that.
Well, I was able to draw him in a game in Worcester. I forget the name of the tournament, but that was some years ago. But again, we have lost a great chess player, to me, the greatest New England chess player. Okay. Now, what we're going to present to our viewers today, Dave, is a game that John Curdo played in May of 1986. It was the 26th Central New England Open. It was held at the Knights of Columbus in Fitchburg on Electric Avenue. And he faced a player who became a master. Right. I don't think he was a master at the time, but he was on his way up. He was actually a very strong expert who became a national master by the name of David Diamond. David Diamond, who was a very active player at the Boylston Chess Club in Boston, faced John Curdo in the final day of play. It was May 26th of 1986, was the date of it. They faced each other in the Central New England Open, and John Curdo had white in the game. And how did he open his game against David Diamond in that tournament?
We can say, too, this came from one of the Chess Caviar books, so it's a very short game.
So it's a short game?
Short game, E4.
Okay.
Is what he opened with.
All right, so E4, we've presented that
a lot of times.
Lots of times. So I'm going to get closer to the board. As I move closer, this is what David Diamond responded with. He played C5. Now, what do we have here?
So it's a Sicilian at this point.
Sicilian defense. Very popular. We've presented this numerous times. Scores of times. Okay, how did John Curdo continue?
The most common second move. Knight F3, preparing to play D4.
Okay. All right. Now, black has choices here in response to this. He could actually develop this knight on B8 to C6.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Good move. He could also play this pawn on E7 to E6.
Yeah.
Good. But what David Diamond played was D6. Another good move.
Yep.
Okay.
Also very common.
Very common. There's actually, if players were to go to the online to their chess databases,
Various databases, yeah.
they would find wouldn't they not find millions of games where this has been played before?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so how did John Curdo continue with his third move?
So he played a not so common third move. Most typical is D4. He played bishop B5 check.
Okay. All right, so, and by the way, I want to point out to our viewers, this was actually one of John Curdo's favorite continuations against the Sicilian defense, against those who played D6.
Who played D6, yeah.
Right. All right, now does this have a name? Again, chess has names for openings and variations and defenses.
So Moscow variation is one.
Yes.
Is a common one.
And the reason why it's called the Moscow variation is because back in the 1930s, this was very popular. Mm-hmm. This was very popular back in
Moscow.
In Moscow, especially, yeah. But also throughout Russia. But Moscow is where the greatest concentration of chess players were in Moscow. All right, so black has to block this check.
Yep.
And there are three ways. Well, there were three ways to do it with two minor pieces. And what David Diamond did, he blocked with the bishop. He played bishop d7. So that's what he chooses to do.
Yeah.
All right. So how does John Curdo continue on his fourth move here?
Well, again, this bishop is now attacked. So
right. Okay.
One obvious thing he can do is just exchange.
Okay. So bishop takes d7 check. All right. So there are two ways to recapture. Mm-hmm. Actually, a third way, but we're certainly not going to recapture with a king.
Right.
That would be the worst possible way to recapture. So do we recapture with the knight? Knight on b8 takes on d7, or we take with the queen? Well, David Diamond knows you're going to take with the queen. Queen takes d7 to reserve this knight to develop to this square, c6.
Right.
Okay, it's John Curdo's next move. What is he doing now?
So he simply castles to continue developing.
And this is the fastest way to castle. You can do it in 4 moves.
Right.
You can't do it quicker than 4 moves. Yeah. So he did it. He castled right now. All right. So now is David Diamond's move. He now develops the knight on b8 to c6. A good developing move. All right. John Curdo's move. What is he doing?
So he pushes c3 to prepare d4. So if there's an exchange, he's going to have both of his center pawns.
Okay. So that's why he plays c3. So he'd like to maintain the 2 center pawns on e4 and d4. Okay. He could have played d4, but it makes more sense. His idea is to maintain 2 center pawns.
Right.
Okay. So after c3, David Diamond plays the pawn to e6. Okay. So he's going to try to open up actually for bishop development. Okay. Curdo's move. What does he do?
Plays his other center pawn to d4, opening up a line for the bishop.
Okay. Now, in response to that, what David Diamond does is just recapture the pawn on d4 with the c pawn. Yep. C takes d4 is his move. Okay. All right. So Curdo's move, what does he do?
And then John does the same.
Yes.
C takes d4.
Right. He takes back with the pawn. Not with the knight, of course. The whole idea of playing c3 was to prepare d4 and maintain those 2 center pawns.
I don't think we're getting the...
Right.
Looks like we're not getting it at all. So I guess we'll just continue.
All right. We'll just continue. All right. All right. Anyways, so whose move is it now?
So Black's 8th move.
Okay. So Black's 8th move. All right. So here is where David Diamond now plays the pawn, which he had played on d6 on the second move. Mm-hmm. He now plays it to d5. He plays the pawn to d5. Okay. Now the pawn is attacking the pawn on e4.
So he plays. He takes d5. All right.
Okay. Now, it's unfortunate to our viewers that we don't have the graphics. Maybe we could have the camera, our camera 1 show the board so we can at least, our viewers at home can see the position on the board from camera 1. Because what they're seeing actually just...
here we go.
Okay, now we can see... Yep. Now we can see the board. Yeah, now we can see the board. Yeah. Not as good. Okay, anyway, so in response to this, it's David Diamond's move. He recaptures the pawn on d5 with the queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you could.
Which is a little surprising because.
Yes.
Because.
Why is this surprising? Why is he could have taken with the pawn?
Could have taken with the pawn, and all we can figure is that he was afraid of opening up the E file, perhaps.
Right.
Because Dave Diamond's response is knight to c3, so he develops the knight with tempo, attacking the queen.
Yeah, we see the knight on c3 attacking the queen, and the queen now has to move. Now, the question is, where does that queen go? The queen has to relocate, and what David Diamond did was to play the queen back to d7.
Yeah.
So he's on
Just reasonable.
Queen d7.
That's reasonable.
All right. Okay, Curdo's move. What is he doing now? It's his 11th move. It's actually Curdo's 11th move coming up.
Right. So he would like to open the center up since black hasn't even castled yet. So he plays d5.
Okay.
In an attempt to open things up.
Okay. Now, if we can actually have our camera one show the board, we can see the position where the pawn is.
There we go.
We see the pawn on d5, which is attacking the knight.
Yep.
Also the pawn on e6. Okay. So David Diamond, what does he do? Well, he captures that pawn on d5 with the e pawn.
Yep.
It's the only thing that could capture the pawn.
Yep.
So e takes d5 is the move he plays. He takes d5. So now what does John Curdo do?
So it's kind of screams out to be played. Rook to e1, check.
Rook e1 check. All right. Okay. So we have to block the check. The check has to be blocked.
Yeah.
And there are different ways to do this. Well, there are actually three ways. Actually,
right.
we don't want to bring the knight back here.
Right.
That would make any sense. You could block it with the bishop. We could put the bishop there.
Which was probably best.
That was probably better than what he did.
Yeah, because now he puts the knight there and he blocks the bishop in.
Yeah, I know. So that was what he did.
Yeah.
He played the knight on g8 to e7, which does block the bishop.
Yeah.
So the poor bishop now is hemmed in. Okay. All right. So let us continue with Curdo's next move, which is what?
Bishop to f4, 13th move.
Okay. Developing another piece.
One more piece developed, yeah.
Okay. He continues with his development. All right. So now here comes a turning point in the game.
Yeah.
This actually, no one, well, you and I would never do this.
Yeah.
If we were black in this position,
right.
Who would castle queenside, longside castling as David Diamond did?
Yeah. But this is sort of why we were thinking he mustn't have been a master yet at this point, because I don't think a master would have done this.
So you don't think a master would ever do this?
Because this file is completely open.
Right. You don't want to do. You never want to do this, especially with an open C file.
The bishop is pointing down at it. And
so you say you're saying that the David Diamond, who wasn't a master at the time.
Well, we don't think he was.
I
can't believe he was.
No, I don't think he was. No, I think he was an expert. I think he was an expert at the time. Working his way up, he eventually became a natural master. Yeah. But you think he probably learned his lesson later in life and said, I'll never do this again.
Yeah.
I'll never castle queenside in allowing actually white to put a rook on c1.
So rook to c1.
Rook c1
right
is what
there on the open file.
Okay. All right.
Or soon to be.
Right, exactly. Very dangerous place to have this king here.
Yeah.
All right. This is what David Diamond did. He plays the knight on e7 to g6 and attacks the undefended bishop on f4.
And clears the path for the bishop to develop.
Okay, fine. Okay. So that bishop it has to save itself.
Have to do, either defend it or move it. He moves it back to g3.
Yeah.
So it's still pointing at the...
Yeah, he certainly wants to hold on to his bishop.
Right.
He certainly doesn't want to trade. That bishop is in an excellent place.
Right, it's covering squares that the king could move to.
The king can't move.
King can't even move
right now. The bishop controls the dark squares. All right. Now, David Diamond realizes by castling queenside, this is very dangerous to keep the king, which cannot move, where it is. So he plays the pawn to b6 so he can create a little hiding square for the king on b7. All right. So it is now Curdo's next move after b6. What does he do?
But Curdo, he doesn't miss a trick. He plays queen to a4. So now he's threatening to bring the queen into his hole on a6.
All right. So there's threats. He's putting pressure here. Yeah. Okay. So queen on a4. All right. So David Diamond says, okay, I created this b7 square for the king to occupy. So that's what he does.
Right.
He plays king b7. And that was actually his 16th move. All right. How does Curdo continue? Are we at the right position?
Yep. Yep.
All right. So
Knight
it comes
to
in.
B5.
Okay. Ooh. Now, is there? There must be a threat here. There's a nasty threat. Could there be a threat of actually sacking the exchange, the rook for the knight, the knight is actually defending this pawn.
Right. Right.
So this could be a nasty threat.
Right.
If we eliminate the defender of the pawn on a7 by sacking the rook, rook takes c6, we're going to be able to come down with a check here.
With check.
And actually,
the king would have to go to c8.
And it would be a mate because the king would be forced to this square. And I think wouldn't it be a mate?
I think it would be a mate or...
No, it would be a mate. Yeah, it would be a mate because actually the king would be here and the queen would go here. Remember, there's no piece here.
All right, the queen, yes.
It'd be a mate. It would be, right. Okay, so here is what David Diamond did after this. We actually have in this position... Now, we went over this game before.
Yeah, right.
And you and I agreed that what David Diamond did, he played the pawn all the way up to a5.
Right.
Was he better off playing the pawn to a6, attacking the knight?
Yeah.
But he chose not to. He played the pawn to a5, okay? And, what did John Curdo do now after a5?
Also plays the knight on f to d4, adding more pressure.
More pressure, okay. So with the pawn on the knight on d4, well, David Diamond has to develop these undeveloped pieces he has here.
Yep.
He plays the bishop on f8 to c5. So he has actually developed the bishop to c5. Curdo's move. What is he?
But again, Curdo doesn't miss a trick, and he sacks the exchange. He takes the bishop on c5.
So now he is actually sacrificing the rook for the minor piece, which is called sacrificing the exchange.
Right.
And David Diamond accepts the sacrifice by taking b takes c5. Am I right about this?
Yep, you're correct.
Okay. So we go here. So now what happens?
And now, since the bishop is no longer guarding that square, he plays knight d6 check.
Check.
Because it's defended by the bishop.
Okay, so forcing the king to move, and the king has very few moves to go, and the king in this position, the king actually...
No,
the king didn't move.
The king didn't move.
What David Diamond chose to do was to capture he figured, okay, I'm going to take here, queen takes d6. Yeah. And,
it's a very desperate position.
He's very desperate.
No matter what.
Yeah, because he feels, maybe he's getting enough material. He's threatening to win this night. Maybe he can get rid of it. He'll get rid of it. If the bishop takes the queen, he'll actually have two rooks on the knight versus the rook and the queen. But no, unfortunately, what happens is the Curdo does what? He doesn't actually...
doesn't even take the queen.
Doesn't even take the queen. He says, "No, I got a stronger move."
Queen to b5 check.
Now, queen b5 check, and David Diamond resigned.
Yeah.
Why did he resign? Should we show actually our viewers why he resigned? Because the king has to move. Where does it go? Let's say, for example, it goes here. No, that doesn't work. He can't go here because this will allow the knight here check. And
soon to be made.
This game is over.
Right, but even if he didn't want to continue the attack, he could
take the queen.
Simply take the queen.
Right, exactly, yeah. So this was overwhelming. So the mistake that David Diamond made was castling queenside.
Castling queenside, it's amazing.
Okay. Now, I see that by the clock on the wall that we still have time to talk about John Curdo.
Yeah.
And you have actually John Curdo's book. We've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Now, you wanted to read to our viewers some passage from Curdo's book, 40 Years at the Top, which came out, by the way, in 1988.
88, okay.
I should point out to our viewers, I didn't know this until I read this book some time ago. You know where this book was printed in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
However, you know where the copyright for this book was? Fitchburg.
Why is that?
Because the Massachusetts Chess Association published this book. But why would the Massachusetts Chess Association put Fitchburg, Massachusetts as the copyright place?
Oh, were you the president at the time?
I was the president. I didn't know that. I didn't know they were going to do this.
Oh.
I know they were going to put down the residence of the president of the association as the copyright, but they did it. Anyways, just a side note to the book. So what are you going to read for our viewers?
So this is when, from the intro to the book, about when he went pro. It says, in the wake of the Fisher boom, he played in as many as 44 tournaments a year.
Right.
He found it very difficult to work all week. If he had had a good tournament, he would still be pretty high when he got to work on Monday. Then the quote says, come Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd get irrational over daily work problems. His pressure job was driving him up the wall. He suffered from mental exhaustion, but he kept himself in good physical shape. He had a high-pressure job, which clearly conflicted with his playing good chess. And then the quote is, something had to go, either chess or work, so the job had to go.
Okay.
So he started playing chess full-time.
Okay. Okay, we're going to end this tribute to John Curdo with a photo slideshow that was put together by our very accomplished director, Darren Dame. Yeah. And we're very thankful to John Curdo's widow, Carol Curdo, and to Tony Cortizes, a professional chess photographer from Cambridge, and also for Mike Bergeron, who visited John Curdo, who took a photo of himself with John Curdo. We have this photo slideshow, which we're going to show right now. It's a very short slideshow, but I hope our viewers enjoy this presentation of John Curdo.